Good evening, everyone. We are going to call tonight's meeting to order. We are going to start with an approval of the agenda, please. Deputy Mayor, seconded by Councillor Andrews. All in favor? And that's carried unanimously. Are there any disclosures of direct or indirect pecuniary interest? Councillor Stevens?
Yes, I do. My mom is on the senior board. She's a board member on the senior center. So I will declare some interest as well there.
Okay, when that item arises, we will have you leave. And have you submitted with the clerk at this time? Okay, there's some paperwork to submit to the clerk's office, so Tracy will make sure that you get that. Thank you very much, Councillor Stevens. Was there any additional? Oh, okay, seeing none. There is a recommendation that a closed meeting of council be held pursuant to section 239, subsection 2 of the Municipal Act for purposes of considering the following subject matters. The closed council minutes from October 16th, a confidential report regarding committee updates and appointments titled CPS 2023-72, which is personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees. Additionally, we have a confidential report from Castles Brock and Blackwell LLP regarding town building, litigation or potential litigation, including matters before administrative tribunals affecting the municipality or local board, and advice that is subject to solicitor-client privilege, including communications necessary for that purpose. Can I please have a motion to go into closed? Councillor Sherwood and Councillor McIntosh, all in favor? And that is carried. We are now in closed session. All right, welcome to tonight's meeting of council. We are going to begin with the singing of our national anthem. Please rise if you are able.
O Canada, our home and native land, true patriot love in all of us command. With glowing hearts we see thee rise, the true north strong and free. From far and wide, O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. God keep our land glorious and free. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee.
We would like to acknowledge the treaty lands and territory of the Williams Treaty Nations and the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation. We also recognize that Dufferin County is the traditional territory of the Wendat and the Haudenosaunee and is home to many Indigenous people today. Tonight's meeting is being aired on public television and or streamed live and may be taped for later public broadcast or webcast. Your name is part of the public record and will be included in the minutes of tonight's meeting. Any member of the public connecting via telephone is reminded to press *6 to mute and unmute. Please remain muted until the chair requests comments or questions from the public. Ahead of tonight's meeting, we did have a closed session, and we are going to rise and report that the minutes of the 2023 meeting of October 16th closed council meeting be approved, and that confidential report CPS 2023-72 committee update and appointments regarding personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees, be received, and that council accept the resignation of Mark Mishcott from the Economic Development and Culture Committee and proceed with option 1 to appoint Sana Wakar to the Economic Development and Culture Committee, and that council accept the resignation of James Newton from Access Orangeville and proceed with option 1 to appoint Michelle Hartley to Access Orangeville, and that council accepts the resignations of Mark Mishcott and Paul Mirren from Heritage Orangeville and proceed with option 1 to appoint Drew Williams to Heritage Orangeville, and that council remove Kaya Wajiska Weatherby from the Mayor's Youth Advisory Council and proceed with option 1 to appoint Hayden Robb to the Mayor's Youth Advisory Council, and that confidential report from Castles, Brock and Blackwell LLP Town Building regarding litigation or potential litigation, including matters before administrative tribunals affecting the municipality or local board, and advice that is subject to solicitor-client privilege, including communications necessary for that purpose, be received, and that staff proceed as directed. Can I have a motion, please? Councillor Stevens, seconded by Councillor Andrews. All in favor? And that is carried. We do have a recommendation that the minutes of the October 16th, 2023 council meeting be received. Can I have a motion, please? Councillor Andrews and Councillor Prendergast, any questions or comments on those minutes? Seeing none, I'll call the vote. All in favor? And that is carried unanimously. We're now going to move into the section of the meeting where we turn it over to presentations, petitions, and delegations. We will start with 11.1, which is a delegation from Bob Sinclair from 37 Fieldgate Drive regarding one-sided and winter parking. And I believe Bob is here in person. There he is. Okay, perfect. If you just want to come up and have a seat and turn on your mic, the floor is yours. Welcome, Mr. Sinclair.
I'm on? Okay. I had a very busy weekend. Did everybody get that email I sent to council?
Yes, we did.
Okay. Do I need to reread it or?
No, you can do whatever you want with your 5 minutes.
Okay. Well, I don't know. Those were just my points that I kind of laid out, and I just wanted to make you aware of it and see what, if anything, can be done about it.
No, we appreciate that, and we have added your email into tonight's meeting as correspondence as well. Was there any questions for Mr. Sinclair from any members of council? Councillor Andrews? And then Councillor Sherwood.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. And Mr. Sinclair, thank you so much for being here. Pleasure to chat with you also on site. You do make some interesting points about the complexity of some of our roads and, of course, the locations of some of the one side of the road parking. I also appreciate the comment that was highlighted in your email about Christmas and New Year's Eve, and I think there will be the opportunity for us to have some discussion a little bit later on, if I'm not mistaken, Your Worship. Correct? Yes. Thank you.
Councillor Sherwood.
Yes, through you, Your Worship. Nice to see you again, Mr. Sinclair. I was just wondering if we could get you to perhaps work with staff regarding the College Avenue, and perhaps Mr. Deleuze could give a Cole's notes of your comments regarding the suggestions from Mr. Sinclair, and if possible, if you could relay that information to staff. I think working with them is probably the best.
Mr. Deleuze, can I turn the floor over to you?
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you to Councillor Sherwood, thank you for that. And certainly we'd be happy to work with Mr. Sinclair. We have met on site a number of times and we've discussed, amongst other things, no parking, trees, stop signs, and just about everything else as it relates to transportation. So certainly I'd be happy to meet with Mr. Sinclair again, go over what our recommendations are, and certainly have another open discussion. And certainly there are some good points in there and we'll take them back.
Perfect. Thank you. Councillor Sherwood, do you have a follow-up? No, you're good. Anybody else have any questions for Mr. Sinclair tonight? Councillor Prendergast?
Through you, Mayor Post. Thank you for coming, Mr. Sinclair. And I read your email, and I do see that sometimes in town, best laid plans with solar panels for those signs that ask you to slow down. Sometimes the trees fill in afterwards, and then the solar panels don't work so well. Best laid plans, right? But if you ever see anything like that again, let us know, and hopefully we can work to move those ill-placed signs. Thank you for alerting us to that.
I think the sign was placed first. He's later on, and I just mentioned that to Tony on site. You know,
Oh, that's
thought I'd
perfect.
include it again since I asked. Everyone, they're welcome to passing by it.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much for being here, Mr. Sinclair. I think that's all that we have from council today, and you'll be working with Tony going forward as well.
Can I ask one more question?
Sure.
Christmas Eve and New Year's Eve, you guys are going to talk about that, mate? Possibly about overnight, just possibly allowing overnight parking.
Yep.
On
Councillor
those
Andrews is going to discuss that when we get to that section. Okay. Thank you.
That's it. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Sinclair. Up next, we have Brenda Watson, the administrator from the Orangeville Senior Center, regarding the waterproofing of the basement. Yeah. Thank you. Councillor Stevens did declare a pecuniary interest, so he is going to step out, and we will call him when he is back. Thank you, Councillor Stevens.
Am I on?
You are good.
Very good. Thank you for having us, Mayor Post and the rest of council. You will have seen our presentation that introduced the Senior Center as a vital part of our community serving seniors 55 plus. We operate out of the Senior Center at 26 Bethia Street, and for a number of years, I've been with the Senior Center for 2 years. This issue of water in the basement precedes me, and I sent you some pictures. We have been in consultation with the town since we began the process of finding a way to resolve the issue through finding some funds and working on an action plan. And that started back in probably late 2021, early 2022, and it took about 9 months to hatch the plan and in the process of working with our contractor, Jim Hope. So fast forward to this spring and summer, we began digging. Jim and his crew began digging down the creek side of our senior center, and very quickly, it became obvious that we weren't finding weeping tile. We weren't finding places to where the water would outlet. All that there was water and soil and no weeping tile. So we called in the town, and the town said, "Oops, this project's beyond the scope of your original plan, and hold on, let's do some consultation and ask your contractor for a new proposal to go from where we are to where we need to be." So that is the a contract that we received from Jim, and it focuses on digging out further past the walkway so that we can get down safely to do some waterproofing, putting in weeping tile, finding an outlet, and that is the focus of where we, the senior center, need guidance and some resource help to finish this project.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Councillor McIntosh had a question. We'll start there.
Thank you, Your Worship. I don't really have a question. I have a comment. I guess I was been talking to Brenda a couple of weeks ago, and you know, this is a town-owned building. So I think whatever it takes to fix it, much like the arena, this council needs to take action to fix it. So I guess I'll be supporting whatever the town or the council comes up with to support it. But again, just a reminder, it is a town building, so it needs to be fixed. Thank you.
Yep, Mr. Smith, go ahead.
Yeah, I'll just comment, and others may later on. I'll just comment that we have a number of leased buildings. All of the leases call for different levels of service and different requirements. Some buildings pay lots of rent, and we manage that. Some buildings pay no rent, and they manage stuff. So each one is a little bit different.
Councillor Sherwood.
Worship, through you to staff, do we have a specific building fund reserved for this building, or is it for all properties?
Mr. Kelly?
Sure. Through you, Mayor Post, to Councillor Sherwood, there is no specific reserve funding set aside for this building. As CAO Smith alluded to, the existing agreement with the Seniors Club was that they would maintain the structure itself, so there hasn't been funds set aside for that.
Follow up, Your Worship?
Yeah, Councillor Sherwood.
So the ask here tonight is for the town to pay 100% of the cost to fix it?
Of the second quote, yeah.
Some of it?
Mm-hmm.
Say that, or?
Yep, the second quote, which takes it a little bit deeper. The quote that was circulated before tax is 82.2.
Savage, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Post. Thank you, Brenda. There was two quotes. The first quote was given and Trillium agreed to cover that amount. That amount was $106,000 and change. And then once you realize that there was more remediation work required, the same company gave a second quote, and it was in total, including the contingency plans, permit fees, you're going to look around $105,000. Yes. Yes. So Trillium will cover the first amount. And I believe that the senior center is looking for the help with resourcing the second amount.
The second half.
Which was 82.2 plus tax and contingencies.
Yeah, about $20,000 in contingencies. And it also does not include building permit fees, which there'd be a cost to that.
Sure, good. Councillor Andrews?
Two questions. Who holds the insurance on that property? Is it the leaseholder or is it the town?
Senior center has insurance.
Has there been any investigation to see if this would fall under your insurance coverage?
No.
Okay. And then number two would be to Mr. Kelly. If we were to proceed with the cost for remediation, where would these funds come from?
Mr. Kelly.
Yeah, through you, Mayor Post, as noted, there isn't funding that was specifically set aside for this building. It would need to be drawn from our general capital reserve fund, but there wasn't an anticipation for those funds being required. There could be other options to assist in funding or temporarily financing works like this on behalf of the Seniors Club. But again, this is obviously a decision of council on how they want to move forward.
Councillor Andrews, do you have follow-up?
Immediacy of this, obviously you're already in the process of moving ahead with the other repairs. Is that correct?
We began and we were halted by the town.
Got it. So what would it take to investigate through insurance?
Phone call, I
Yes.
suppose.
Well, I think for the sake of, figuring out exactly how we end up supporting this, I think that would be some due diligence that at least would be, I think, one request that I would have on council is to at least find out from your insurance agent, your broker, to see if there's a way to, find out if this is potentially covered, and then report back to town staff to see how we might be able to move ahead with supporting this in some capacity, to Councillor McIntosh's point.
Councillor Sherwood.
Through you, I'm just thinking, Councillor Andrews, if we own the building, we would be going through our insurance then. No, the tenant.
Mr. Smith, do you know?
Mr. Kelly.
Or Mr. Kelly's got his hand up. Yep.
Yes, so through you, Mayor Post, as part of the lease agreement between the town and the seniors, they hold a $5 million insurance policy. So that's what would be looked to first prior to going on to the township's own insurance. I'm sorry.
Mr. Smith.
I'm sorry for jumping in, Mayor Post, and through you. I think it's important for council to realize that there is a lease in place. There is a lease in place that outlines responsibilities and roles and payments. We have multiple leases at multiple buildings. I've mentioned already they are all different. Staff's first position would be fall back on the agreement. We have a duly signed agreement by the Seniors Club and by a council at the time that directs who's responsible for what. In this particular case, the Seniors Club require financial support to maintain the building. That's not an unreasonable request. It is over and beyond what they're typically would think of maintenance. There are options to achieve that shared goal. There's also options for us to support the organization or other organizations on understanding the lease requirements and building the financial foundation to have those funds for situations like this. So there's a lot of pieces. We know it needs to get fixed. We know the seniors are a valuable contributor to our community, and we value the services they want. So there is a solution. The challenge that staff have sometimes is that the lease says one thing and the community will is slightly different. It may be appropriate for staff to take this back and work with the seniors. We've known about this, but this is the first official time we've got it and develop a plan with them. I'm not privy, quite frankly, on whether the repairs need to be done today or next week. It feels that if it's a drainage issue, we've got some time to do that. But I don't know that. So, they could comment on that. But we do have a lease agreement, which is different at all different ones. So every time something like this comes up, we need to circle back to what the original agreement was.
Appreciate that, Mr. Smith. Ms. Watson, do you have something else to add?
Yeah, I just wanted to highlight for you the fact that our Trillium funding must be, the project must be finished mid-April. So time's ticking and we're starting to deal with weather.
Understood. Councilor Rendergast?
Thank you, through you. So let's just think about timelines. If you phoned the insurance and you were able to ascertain if that was something that could be covered, how quickly could we approve moving ahead with the project with the $105,000 if insurance is not able to cover it? So we could see that this gets done quickly. I would hate to see the seniors center degrade further and have mold and unsafe situations for everyone that uses it, right? And
Water comes in, it's not going to get any better.
No.
It's just going to get worse.
Ms. Savage?
Through you, Mayor Post. We could work with Ms. Watson and the seniors group to figure out next steps. I do know that right now we're dealing with a lease agreement that says all maintenance and costs and charges with respect to operation and repairs are the responsibility of the seniors group. So then we would look at amending the lease agreement. We would need to return to council unless there was a notice to say that there's another form or another funding model put forward. I know that we were speaking with the treasurer and talking about a term loan at 0 interest, no fixed payments, maybe going through the grant system. There could be options.
Ms. Watson, go ahead.
Just this quote is good for 30 days from Mr. Hope, and we've already wasted several weeks.
You can come and join up at the delegation booth, but you'd have to say your name and participate there as well. In order for it to be picked up on YouTube by everybody listening, you have to be at the mic. So that's why I'm asking you to come up. Thank you for doing that. And if you could just state your name and then go ahead and make your comment as well.
Can you hear me? My name is Bill Lynch. I happen to be the current president of the Senior Center. My question is, this building was built by the town almost 40 years ago. I'm surprised if there's no weeping tile, which seems to be the problem, and on that building. That was done with a so-called building inspector who allowed it to happen. It's obviously an oversight by the town when it was built and presented to us. That's my comment.
I appreciate that. And council doesn't have access to plans or building permits from back then, but it's something that staff could work on with you for sure. So I appreciate your comment. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor McIntosh.
Actually, just for the record, it was the county at the time, not the town. The town didn't get a building department until about 35 years ago. I know time's an issue here, and I think we should somehow get the money and then deal with the fallout later, how we get it, whether we go through insurance, however we do this, it needs to be done now. Again, I know there's lease agreements, I know this and that. Let's get that straightened out, but let's get it fixed first. Thank you.
Deputy Mayor and then Councillor Sherwood.
Thank you, Your Worship. So someone is in that building on a frequent basis. I'm in there every couple of weeks for a group that I'm involved in that building. It doesn't surprise me. I knew exactly where that leak was when we saw it would be there, so it doesn't surprise me that it's there. The issue for you won't be Mr. Hope. Mr. Hope is a Orangeville contractor who's been involved in many benevolent things, and I'm quite certain that if a time limit came to be, he would work with you. It's the matter of where the money would be. And, for the gentleman just spoke, council is not against the senior center, would be supportive of the senior center. It's just when there's legal agreements and taxpayers' money, you just need to be careful about how you're making your decision process. We just need to hear it all and then figure out. So I would be with you, Councillor McIntosh, and that is, I think we need to move forward now. But the reality is, I'm not sure as I sit here, and even though I am someone who benefits from the senior center, I don't know that the taxpayers of Orangeville should be totally on the hook for the amount of money. It feels like an interest-free loan or helping with the grant process afterwards to pay back the town might be the best thing, because we must respect our legal documents as we go forward. So it's kind of where I'm thinking now, but we should money tonight.
I'm going to let Ms. Watson make a comment, and then I will turn over to Councillor Sherwood.
Yeah, I just want to put things into perspective. We have just under we're growing. We're climbing towards 600 members. Our annual membership fee is $30 per year. And each participant pays an activity fee of $2 every time they come to the center. That pays for a few things. We have rentals, we have some fundraisers, and we are struggling to keep the doors open. This is on top of that. Paying back a loan is not feasible for this group.
Sherwood?
Through your worship, are you able to go back to Trillium to ask for more funding?
They don't do that.
Okay, so my thought is again, I'm going back to the lease agreement. And my whole thought is I think we need to move forward to get this going. I would think that we could give you a long-term, many year loan of that money to get it going, and then, you know, add a few $100s a month to your current lease that you pay us to pay that back. And then if you pursue the insurance, you're able to get insurance to cover it, then that null and voids any rental increase. That would be my proposal. I don't know what the rest of my members feel.
Mr. Smith?
Yeah, through you, Mayor, if I can summarize what I'm hearing is I think we're coming to some conclusion with staff, and I just want to make sure we've got clear direction, is that council is authorizing the project to proceed. We will assist in funding. We'll work with the Seniors Club to develop some type of future funding model that makes it more sustainable. And not sure what that will come out with, but we'll work closely with them. We don't want to put them out of business. We don't want undue hardship with our seniors. We don't want all of those things. We also need to work within what our existing lease agreement is. So the summary is that the project can proceed. We will fund it in the short term, and we'll work with the seniors to develop some kind of a resolution. If we can't come to that, they can come back. It could be through a grant process. There's lots of different options.
That sounds good. Councillor Andrews and then Deputy Mayor.
Thank you very much, Your Worship, Mr. Smith. I thank you for that, and I like how you've framed it, but I still think it's imperative that a follow through with the insurance company. I think it's an absolute that at least you can find out, and maybe this is in collaboration, not to put any more burden on any staff, but if there's a way that staff can provide some assistance with whatever is required by your insurance agent, broker, firm, that we have that information provided so that at least some clarity is provided, and also maybe a resolution to support, as my fellow members of council have also indicated.
Deputy Mayor.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. Mr. Smith, I agree. A great summary. The thing that's just not clear to me, just as was described by Brenda, the ability to pay something back is limited, like based on the financial position that was just given. So I don't know if this is just, it's confusing to me what next steps would be based on the financial situation. So you wonder, would economic development mentor the Seniors Club on a new structure? We're not going to get our money back in the situation that we're describing. So there almost has to be a new go forward. I'm looking over here at you, Heather, but I think there would need to be help in terms of structure and fees and whatnot, and still making it affordable for the people that use it. I'm just not sure what the answer is, but expecting them to pay isn't going to happen.
And I think just to build on perhaps what Deputy Mayor is saying, is there current fees that the senior center is paying to the town currently for the lease? Is there a dollar amount monthly that the building's being leased by the town for?
Through you, Mayor Post, the way the lease agreement is structured is the seniors group is responsible for all of the operating costs. 20% you're charged 20% of the operating costs you are to pay to the town, but then the town in turn gives you a grant, so no money is actually exchanged. That's the terms of the agreement. The agreement is set to expire in 2026. We can move that up, look at and at any time we can terminate the lease and then renegotiate and look at more of a supportive model, but also looking at a business model for the seniors group. We can do some benchmarking. We can find out, is there a way to develop a building levy on your memberships? Same way, if we rent an hour of ice, we take 3% of that hour revenue and we put it towards an ice resurfacer, knowing that we're going to have to pay for that ice resurfacer every 10 years. We can work with them.
Okay, great. Mr. Kelly, I think the follow-up would be to you then is where would the money come from? How would we move this piece forward today?
Yeah, sure. Through you, Mayor Post, as mentioned earlier, I would say we would need to draw the funds out of the general capital reserve. That would adjust our balances going forward on that. And then hopefully through this funding model discussion and further discussions with the seniors, we would replenish that money into the reserve fund over a number of years.
Any additional questions from members of council? Yep, go ahead. Councillor McIntosh is going to craft something.
No, I'm going to jump on Mr. Smith.
He's going to look at Mr. Smith and say, can you craft that again?
Yeah, that sounded good. I'd make that motion.
Did you capture that, Ms. McDonald, with enough clarity? Yes? Do you want to read it back?
Certainly, through you, Mayor Post. The motion I've captured is that council approve the cost of the repairs to the senior center to a maximum of, I believe, Heather said $105,000 funded through the general capital reserves, and that staff work with the seniors club to develop a funding model moving forward.
I think Mr. Kelly just said 110, if I read your lips correctly.
Sorry, through you, Mayor Post, I would just add in 110 so we have a buffer for any unforeseen above the contingency, as well. Specific reference to that will be drawn from the general capital reserve fund would be appreciated.
Okay, so moved by Councillor McIntosh, seconded by Councillor Sherwood.
Your worship, I just want to clarify, does the motion have to include that they research with the insurance company? And is it kind of covered in that, Ms. McDonald? And
Ms. McDonald?
Through you, Mayor Post, to Councillor Sherwood, I believe that's covered within the wording of the funding model.
Okay, thank you. Okay, perfect. Before I call the vote, I just wanted to make the comment to the senior center that we appreciate everything that you do, and don't take any of this commentary as us not being appreciative of all the work that you do. We understand exactly how important a resource the senior center provides. Your membership is fantastic and growing, and I think that's amazing. You're offering really, really great services. We do just have to make sure that our legal piece and our lease agreements make sense. And I think moving forward with a lease agreement that's going to protect you and protect the taxpayers of the town is going to be the right way to go. So I think this is a really great motion that will capture that and will hopefully allow the senior center to become more financially feasible going forward so that you don't have fear of closing the doors at any time.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any additional questions or comments from members of council? Deputy Mayor?
Could I be so bold and just talk about something ever slightly different with you while you're here in public? I love your building. I love the inside. I love the outside. It seems to me it's a little bit different in terms of maintenance on the outside lately, and I'm just curious, has something changed or who is doing that? Is that the town who's doing that for you? Is someone in your organization doing that?
Can you be more specific? I'm not sure what you're asking.
Even in the pictures, it's all grown over. It's weeded and all grown over on the creek side. I don't know if that's because of the repairs that you are ongoing or whatnot, but it's not looked like that previously. I was just curious.
No, no, we had, I believe my predecessor had some young students out with butter knives and actually digging it out. So we haven't had resources to hire students.
Thank you, Ms. Watson.
Yep.
Okay, with that, if there's no more questions from members of council,
Well,
Deputy Mayor?
If that's the case, I mean, that's something else that we need to look at. I mean, if it's not being maintained in the way that it's been maintained in the past, then we have to have it looked after. So maybe it's a follow-up for staff and another note, but it doesn't look the same as it used to be. And not trying to be offensive to anybody, but it's not what I'm used to seeing.
I think staff can take that away as part of the ongoing discussions with lease agreement negotiations going forward. Yeah. Any additional questions, comments? Okay, seeing none, I'll call the vote. All in favor? And that is carried unanimously. Can someone please tell Councillor Stevens he can come back in? And thank you very much, Ms. Watson.
Thank you.
We will be moving on next with Mr. Matthew Smith from 38 McCarthy Street regarding pedestrian crossings. I will give it a bit of time for everybody to get settled. Councillor Stevens, you're back.
Stopwatch, make sure.
Okay, good.
I just need a PDF brought up on the screen. What's on the desktop? Oh, right there. Okay, great. Thank you. Perfect. All right.
Okay.
Okay.
If you are ready, Mr. Smith, the floor is yours. Reminder, you've got your 5 minutes. Your stopwatch is ready, so the floor is yours.
Yeah, it's going. All right. Through you, Madam Mayor, thank you very much for allowing me to speak tonight. This is a topic that's very near and dear to my heart. I'm a active pedestrian in Orangeville. I love walking through downtown and, you know, all the lovely streets, or, you know, seeing all the lovely shops on Broadway. But unfortunately, as I'm walking around, I can see some room for improvement. So my presentation tonight will hopefully highlight some of those, and maybe we can generate some discussion. Let's go to the next slide here. Oops. Okay. So I put a call out to various social media groups about locations where residents and myself feel that there is room for improvement in the town, and these were the 4 suggestions that stuck out the most, and these are the ones I'm presenting tonight. The first one is First Street between Elizabeth and Fifth Avenue, Broadway between 2nd and Sherburne/Town Line, 4th Avenue at Zares, and Elizabeth Street at the courthouse. Come on. All right. So the Ontario Traffic Manual has a formula to determine if a pedestrian crossing can be justified or not. And the formula involves pedestrians per, I think, 4 or 8 hour period, and vehicles over a 4 or 8 hour period. And if that, you know, and depending on the outcome of that, usually that's how a pedestrian crossing is justified. But luckily, there's another section in the Ontario Traffic Manual in Book 15, page 28, that says if the pedestrian and vehicle volume requirements aren't met, if there's a pedestrian desire line, then that can be examined for a potential crossing site. And if that site is more than 200 meters away from an existing controlled crossing, that is another criteria that can be used. So I think that's an important thing to keep in mind, where if the numbers of the formula can't be justified, if this is where people want to walk, if this is where people are choosing to cross the road, then if it's more than 200 meters away from an existing crossing, a controlled intersection crossing, then one can be placed. So the first one on my list here is First Street between Elizabeth and Fifth Avenue, and that is a distance of 700 meters between crossings. On the west side of First Street is ODSS, the high school. On the east side is Zares. And here we can see opposite 4th Avenue, there's the new townhouse complex, and that's 40 townhouses being built. And that's in addition to the one directly south of it, which has already been built. On the opposite side of Feed, on the east side of First Street, there's a permit to permit a triplex. And then, of course, along First Street, there is intensification that can happen in the future. I believe the zoning along First Street allows for a mix of commercial and residential and basically intensification. So we know that that's going to be a corridor that's going to see more people. And I've had residents reach out to me that their kids go to the high school and they often have to run across at Feed Street without a proper crossing. And then also people who live in the townhouse complex say they've seen their neighbors having to lug grocery bags from Zares at 4th Avenue because that is the easiest spot for them to cross rather than going up to 5th. So there's, a potential site there. The next one is on Broadway between 2nd and Sherburne/Town Line. So the crossing is actually right here at Town Hall. And then the next one is at Town Line, and that's a distance of 600 meters. And this one is interesting because on the south side of Broadway, there's going to be intensification. We know at Wellington, there is going to be a 5-story, 58-unit condo going up with ground level commercial. And beside it, there's going to be a 7-story, current proposal, 7-story, 125 units with ground level commercial. And then where Angel's Diner is currently located, there's a proposal for 8-story mixed use, 97 units, and again, ground floor retail. Then at 4th Street, on the north side of Broadway, at 4th Street, there is a transit stop And then immediately across from it on the south side, there is a Go Bus stop. And then right there is a Tim Hortons. And I've seen people get off the bus and they want to hoof it across Broadway there. And that's 4 lanes of traffic to make it to Tim Hortons. So I think there's another potential site that's been pointed out to me. And this one is interesting. This one is pointed out to me by quite a few seniors, where along 4th Avenue, on the south side is theirs, and there's the Dollarama, but on the north side here is the Orangeville Transit stop, and the green line, the green bus route only travels west along 4th Avenue, and the bus stop is on the north side. So if people are going to Zehrs to go shopping, they have to exit the bus and they have to go across the road there, and that is 4 lanes of traffic, 2 through lanes and then 2 turning lanes. And the nearest crossing is 200 meters away at Highway 10, but the problem is on the north side of 4th Avenue, there is no sidewalk. And there's no sidewalk on either side of the road all along here. So essentially people, if they want to take the bus, and I know the town is encouraging people to take the bus, there is no way for them to safely cross. And here's just a screenshot of that, where they have to run across right here. So at the courthouse, there's another, oh boy, at the courthouse, there is currently a crossing that exists there, and it's fully covered under the Highway Traffic Act for people to come to a full stop. Unfortunately, that doesn't always happen when pedestrians are in the crosswalk. And at this time of the year, when the sun is getting low just above Elizabeth Street, it can be quite blinding. So I feel something here, maybe like lights, the full treatment of lights might help increase visibility. Or, a radical idea such as this here, which is a raised crossing, might be pertinent to help people cross safely at this location. And also for drivers to help, slow down when they're approaching where pedestrians are going to be there. So this is just something I want to point out here. There is a proper full crossing with lights at Georgian College. But the thing that I don't quite understand, maybe it can be explained to me, that the crossing is here, and it leads to Georgian College, which is great to see that the students have a safe place to cross. And the sidewalk only exists here in front of the school itself. It doesn't continue along Commerce. It doesn't continue along Centennial. I know there's the multi-use trail here, but the thing that's kind of puzzling to me is it's a 2-lane road. I believe it's probably 50 kilometers an hour, but it's a 2-lane road. But this full crossing with lights seems to only service Georgian College. And finally, in the Orangeville SNAP, which council has agreed to follow, there is a area here in the transportation where they say to improve transit options and reduce single vehicle occupancy use and promote walking and cycling by increasing connective and safe active transportation infrastructure. Oops, didn't mean to do that. And then the last section here in the town plan, on page 90 of the town plan, there's a section that says council supports the creation of an environment conducive to cycling and pedestrian circulation. So I guess basically my ask after all that, my ask is that maybe council can discuss this. Potentially a motion, could be drafted, put forward to ask staff to look into some of these issues and maybe improve pedestrian safety for the residents of the town.
Thank you very much, Mr. Smith. Councillor Prendergast and then Councillor McIntosh.
Thank you, Mayor Post, through you. Thank you so much, Mr. Smith. It's nice to see you today. And I really commend your efforts to enhance the town. You make it more walkable, a safer, environmentally sound place. Your efforts through backyard gardening. And I really commend you on soliciting advice and input from residents too, and just trying to listen to feedback. So that's really fantastic. And a very well-researched plan. I really appreciated the overlay that you had with anticipated growth in those corridors that you identified. Very well done. I do know too that those are things that I would like to see one day, perhaps more frequent stops for people across the street, especially along the corridor on Broadway by the Tim Hortons there, perhaps with the transit station being moved, that will alleviate some of that traffic that was being seen previously. In addition to that, I believe we will see in the 2024 budget another pedestrian crossway coming.
Yep.
Maybe Mr. Deleuze, would you like to speak to that, or if that's okay?
Mr. Deleuze, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Post. Through you to Councillor Pendergrass, you're absolutely right. We do have a budget item that was in the 2024 capital for a crossing at Wellington Street. And for council's information, Mr. Ward and I have had a discussion with that developer who has agreed to subsidize part of that. We haven't worked out the details of that, but certainly that will be part of the site plan agreement.
And perhaps that would enhance some of the walkability along that corridor. And I really would direct you to take all this fantastic information to staff, and maybe in the 2025 budget, we can incorporate some of these items. Because if we want to have a more walkable town, these are things that we're going to have to do and implement them. And just knowing that they do come with a big cost too. So that's also part of it. I would love to have safe pedestrian crossings and sidewalks everywhere, but there's so many multi-layered budgetary considerations that I'm now more aware of after my year on council. And yeah, thank you so much, Mr. Smith.
Councillor McIntosh.
Thank you. And thank you, Councillor Pendergrass, for taking all my questions. Again, I was going to hit on the cost. Like, these are great. We would love to do every sidewalk throughout the town. I guess my question to you, have you spoken to staff at all about this?
I have not. I wanted to bring it first to council, and I want to put out to the public realm. I'm more than willing to work with staff. You know, they can contact me anytime. I do know there is a cost associated with everything.
Big cost.
I know recently the town of Alliston announced they are installing a crossing in cooperation with a local business, Baxter Laboratories, Baxter Factory. I'm not sure what Baxter is, but the company is footing the cost of the crossing, and it's at a cost of $95,000. So I know it's not cheap. Right. But hey, we're talking about people's lives here, so you got to do what you got to do.
Absolutely. Just a quick statement. You talk about a sidewalk on the north side of 4th Avenue. That actually was brought up 3 councils ago and turned down because of the cost.
Mm-hmm.
Again, we have to be wary of the cost of these sidewalks and then the maintenance of the sidewalk. So again, my suggestion is talk to staff, get their input. There might be some reasons that these aren't being done or not even proposed to us at the time, but I would start at staff first and then council, but it's your choice.
Well,
thank you.
I just, through you, Madam Mayor, I just want to say I'm not too concerned about the lack of sidewalk on the north side of 4th. It's just pointing out that there's no real connectivity to the bus stop that's immediately across from Zares. So people essentially don't have a choice but to hoof it across 4th Avenue. And when cars are coming along from Highway 10 or from the T intersection at 4th and 3rd, they're moving. They want to go to Zares. They want to go to Home Depot. They're not looking out for people.
Thank you for your report.
Mr. Deleuze, did you have something to add there?
Thank you, Mayor Post. I appreciate the opportunity, and thank you for the presentation. We'd be happy to work with Mr. Smith. I just wanted to just point out real quickly that the treasurer, myself, and Mr. Ward will be working closely to develop a DC background study. A lot of these facilities will be looked at as part of that study, as well as the town-wide transportation study that will be done as part of another study that we have planned for and was approved by council for 2023/2024. So we expect that a lot of these facilities will be shaken out through that study, and we'll expect the consultant to make recommendations on to where these facilities will be located.
Thank you very much, Mr. Deleuze. Deputy Mayor and then Councillor Andrews.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. Thank you, Mr. Smith, for your report. For everybody who might be watching this at home, I honestly wish that more residents would do what you've done, and that is look for ways to better our town and then bring that forward so other people can consider them. I think for the reasons that are stated by my coworkers that, I would have a difficult time just approving these. I'd want to hear what staff had to say and see the reports and understand what the usage is. But I am familiar with a lot of these areas, like just as input for mine, for what it's worth. Like, I think if we did something at First and Elizabeth, it would actually be disruptive to traffic flow. I think it would cause more issues than we would want. Second and Sherbourne, maybe, Like I think there might be an opportunity there. The other three, just to sum, like the one picture you have has my backyard in your picture, so kind of I'm intimately aware of those things. And honestly, in my view, there's no traffic there. Like it would be hard, given our economic resources, to vote in favor of spending on something that would benefit the few. So it's hard to do that. But still, I mean, let's go and look at it and see. And I encourage you to keep bringing these things forward and and go from there. And I wish more people would do the same. So thank you.
Thanks, Deputy Mayor. Councillor Andrews.
Yeah, thank you very much, Your Worship. And Mr. Smith, as has been echoed by my colleagues on council, I commend you for stepping forward with detail that you've taken a lot of time to put forth and express your concerns of how to make our community better. And I also, too, would like to see more people do that. I think it's really great use of time, but also understanding that we have complexities within, of course, making decisions based on the cost. I do understand the one location in particular that you're talking about on 4th by Zares, and that is at the best of times, even if you are driving your vehicle, trying to turn left, trying to turn right, or just trying to continue to go, be that north into the other retail location, it can be problematic. But I think that, the other piece that I wanted to just ask staff, and maybe as Mr. Deleuze had talked about with the forthcoming report, is we did have our traffic mitigation consultant that many of us on council may recall. We had a report that was quite extensive with providing us some options and thoughts to potentially consider, some of which we've spoken about in other communities that also have put into place. Is part of the report going to make reference to that particular consultant's report as well, or some of the best practices that were put forth?
Mr. Deleuze.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you to Councillor Andrews. Absolutely. We will provide the consultant that is successful in obtaining the work from us with all the information, including studies that have done in the past, parking, transportation, you name it. We will provide them with everything so that we have a holistic study completed with a view to preparing budgetary items for council's consideration moving forward.
Thank you.
Councillor Prendergast.
Thank you, Mayor Post. I was just noticing that you highlighted something kind of inadvertently by showing the PXO, the pedestrian crossing at Georgian College, and the sidewalk that just kind of ends. That naturally would lead right up to the food bank. So I picture people who use the food bank not traveling on a sidewalk, going down the road with their wagons to get to the bus. And to me, that's a problem. So thank you for bringing that to our attention. And, I know sidewalks do come with a cost, but maybe that's a place when we have that study that we can fill those gaps. So thank you.
Actually, at the end of Commerce is that little, through you, Mayor Post, to Councillor Prendergast. At the end of Commerce, there is the little walkway to, I think there's an elementary school there and there's a residential neighborhood. So again, a sidewalk there to connect that neighborhood to the food bank, not a bad idea.
Councillor Stevens.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you, again, as my colleagues, I echo their thoughts, and I just want to say that I could support, if this was a motion right now, I could support probably 2 locations, probably not 4.
Yep.
But I again thank you for bringing this to our attention, and I look forward to anything else you bring to ours.
Thank you very much. Any final questions from council? Seeing none, thank you for being here, Mr. Smith. Appreciate your time.
Thank you. And sorry, I went over my time. I realized.
That's okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have Nora Kennedy from Family Transition Place to talk to us about gender-based violence. She is joining us virtually. So, Ms. Kennedy, the floor is yours.
Good evening, and thank you, Your Worship. I just want to check, are you able to hear me?
Loud and clear.
Okay, excellent. And I apologize for not being there in person this evening. Last week, I think we probably all saw and heard the horrific news that came out of Sault Ste. Marie. 3 children were left motherless. 1 mother was left childless. 3 children and 1 woman dead, another injured. Family and lives were destroyed because of an act of violence by a man with a history of intimate partner violence. Just so you are aware, those deaths were added to the total of the provincial annual femicide list, which took the total of that particularly unpleasant list to 50 year to date. As it happened, I was actually in Thunder Bay facilitating a conference of violence against women agencies from across the northern region last week, and was sitting in a room with colleagues from across the north, including colleagues from the Sault Ste. Marie area and city, as that news broke. I shared space with women from across a variety of organizations, from across a variety of regions, who all do the same work that I do. And yet again, we bore witness to the horror and the devastation that gender-based violence wreaks on individuals, on families, on communities, on all of us, actually. One of my colleagues in the room who has been doing this work from the very inception of the shelter movement, 40 plus years, she was one of the first people doing this work, shared an anecdote with us earlier, before we even knew this or heard this news, that said when she started doing the work and we started to bring domestic violence out of the shadows, from behind the closed doors and the drawn curtains where it had lived forever, that she really believed that when it came out and was made public, there would be an outcry and it would be done. Because when people knew that this is what was going on, there would be an end to it. Her comment later that day was that 40 plus years later now, she said, I no longer believe that others want violence against women to end. In 2015, 3 women were shot to death by their former partner, or a former partner of theirs, all on the same day, same man, in Renfrew County. On June 28th in 2022, 86 jury recommendations from the inquest into the deaths of Carol Culleton, Anastasia Kuzak, and Natalie Warmadam were presented. The very first of these recommendations was to have municipalities across the province declare intimate partner violence an epidemic. We're most familiar with the term epidemic, and I would say after the last few years, most of us are very familiar with the terms epidemic and pandemic, but we're most familiar with that term in a healthcare context. So we might wonder what this issue has to do with healthcare. But violence against women is a health issue. The effects of violence against women or intimate partner violence on the social determinants of health are uncontestable. Homelessness, poverty, food insecurity, mental health deterioration, substance misuse, isolation, unemployment, and yes, death are all outcomes. Uncontestable. Violence against women has a significant impact on an individual's well-being and their health. But it's also a social service issue. It is a societal issue. It is a municipal issue. It is a provincial and federal government issue. It's my issue. And it needs to be yours as well. We are not immune from the impacts of gender-based violence here in Orangeville. We've had our share of tragedies over the years. And we still have our share of those people who are dealing with those impacts. Out of our 2023 annual plan roll-up, Family Transition Place provided shelter to 74 women and 40 children during that year. And it would have been higher. Every year prior to the pandemic, it was higher than that. It's only not higher because women with their children or women who are there singly have nowhere to go. We know that as a community. The housing is unaffordable, what housing there is, if you can find it. And so women are staying in the shelter longer and longer because there's nowhere else for them to go, which means that those people who are now seeking safety of the shelter because their lives perhaps are at risk can't get into it. We know that our crisis line in that year, calls to it increased by 23%, bringing that number up to, where is my number? 4,768 calls in a year for people seeking help. If we combine all of our numbers from all of our myriad counseling programs with our transitional support, our housing, and our crisis stats, Family Transition Place counselors supported well over 2,000 women from our own community. Every 48 hours in Canada, a woman or a girl is killed by violence. So is it an epidemic? Currently, I'm pleased to say, over 40 communities have declared it an epidemic. And I would be extremely proud to be able to count Orangeville as one of those municipalities. Actions like that can be seen for what they need to be. An avowal that others do still believe that we can end violence against women and that it's critical that we do that. By declaring it an epidemic, we commit to the victims' families, to survivors, to our communities, and yes, to the sector workers who've been working to end the violence for how many decades, that they're not alone after all. And that when we say it, we mean it. No more. Many thanks to you, Mayor Post, for bringing this critically important issue forward to the council as well. My thanks to all of you on the council. I know that there are many supporters among those of you who sit there, and I am very appreciative that I run the organization that I do in this community. My thanks to you all.
Thank you so much for being here, Nora. And as council knows, there is a notice of motion coming up at the end of the meeting that I've put forward to do exactly that, is to declare an epidemic and a number of other things. Was there questions for Nora while we have her? Councillor Andrews, go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. And Ms. Kennedy, I know that I could get emotional. I think all of us have heard your message loud and clear. For those of us who've been connected, and all of us in different ways have been connected to not only your organization, but those who have been supportive in so many different ways. I look to you as a leader. I look to you for your guidance. I look to you for helping those in our community that need the help. What can we do? In addition to, I know that the mayor has put forth, and there will be a motion later in tonight's council meeting. What can we do? Not only individually, but as a community, what can we do to change the perspective, to change what is going on from a societal perspective? You know, many of us have spoken about the struggles people are having, and we've seen more data, having gone through a worldwide pandemic, and the insecurities that exist financially for many people, and it's just increasing some of the concerns that may, of course, unfortunately, develop in many households. What can we do?
Ms. Kennedy, that's a big question.
It's a big question. Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you, Councillor Andrews, and I know that you have stepped up literally before in high-heeled pink shoes to help us figure that question out. And there's lots, there's many things in terms of fixing that whole issue. You know, who knows? If I had the answer to that, I could retire and go home a contented woman. But there's a few things. One is exactly what you're doing this evening. Two is November is Women Abuse Prevention Month. I know we're going to be having a flag raising at one point during the month. You can attend that. You may notice that I'm already wearing my purple scarf, and I know many of you have them. By wearing our purple scarves during the month of November, we are speaking to the victims and survivors of domestic violence and gender-based violence to say, you're not alone. We are with you, we see you. You know, because I have spoken in front of this council before about the challenges we have around housing. The issues intersect in so many places. But for a woman to leave her home because it is violent, because she fears for her safety, the safety and well-being of her children, to leave that and know that she is taking her children potentially into poverty and homelessness, how many of us could cope with that, making that decision? So many women don't leave, or they return home because where are they going to go? The shelter's full. So anything that you can do to use your influence in terms of creating more housing, any creative way we can look at how do we find places for people to live safely so that they can get their lives back online, all of those pieces. We've spoken many times before, Councillor Andrews, as well, about engaging men. How do we know that most men are good guys. How do we engage men to talk to other men about how to behave, about violence being a continuum? And what we saw last week in Sault Ste. Marie, is the extreme version of that violence. And that gets our attention because it's horrific. But it didn't start on that day. The man who walked into those two homes and destroyed those two families had a history of intimate partner violence. He had access to a firearm. Where does that education need to start? And how do we engage others in helping us get that message across? Because that's this end of the spectrum. That's this end of the continuum. But it starts way over here. It starts way over on the other side with bullying and name calling and thinking of women as objects and telling the sexist rape jokes in the locker room. It starts there, and we're training our boys to think that it's okay to behave in a certain way.
Thank you, Nora.
So you can help us get that message across.
Was there any additional questions from council for Nora? No. Thank you so much for being here, Nora. I really appreciate it. And we always appreciate your conversations with council and all the work that you and your team do.
Thank you, Mayor Post. I appreciate your time and all of your time and commitment. Thank you for being the people who you are, doing the work that you're doing.
Thank you, Nora. Okay, before we move into question period at the leave of council, I just wanted to take a moment to introduce somebody new in our gallery today, new to our community, which is our new inspector for the OPP, Michael DePasquale. I just wanted to give you a moment if you wanted to come up to the mic and just introduce yourself and say hi to council. I know you've been here a couple of times. I don't know if you've had the opportunity to meet everybody, but now that you're new in the role, I thought it would be great to take a moment before question period just to allow you to say hello.
Oh, thank you, Your Worship. Good evening, everybody, and good evening, everyone here today on YouTube and on television. So I am the detachment commander at Dufferin OPP, and it's a pleasure to be part of your community. And yeah, I look forward to working with everybody in the community across Orangeville and Dufferin County to make it a safe place for everybody. So thanks very much.
Thank you so much for being here, Inspector DePasquale. Appreciate you taking the time to come to council tonight. We will now move into the portion of our agenda where we at question period. If there is any members of the public connecting via telephone, they are reminded to press *6 to mute and unmute. Jerry, do we have anybody joining us online? No. Was there anybody in the gallery? You just want to have a seat, state your name and address for the record, and the floor is yours.
Good evening. My name is Noel Ramsey. I live in Orangeville at 15 Feed Street. A couple things through you, Mayor, to all of council. In question period 2 weeks ago, there was some documentation of all the questions and the responses. And I wanted to clarify one thing. In here, it documented, or it states that I was requesting the addition of a sidewalk on Faulkner Street in the Sunset Street where it connects up with Faulkner. At no time have I ever requested any infrastructure, any sidewalks. I haven't requested any bylaws or any modifications to any bylaws or any remodeling of infrastructure, nothing like that. I have been consistent in what I have been requesting, and that is to have the existing bylaw enforced. That's it. No sidewalks. Others are interested in having sidewalks. And I wouldn't question that sidewalks might be beneficial, but that's not my request. Something like a sidewalk infrastructure implementation would take time for council to pass multiple readings of it. It would take the town time to implement something like that. And I don't think when it's a safety issue, that's an appropriate path when the real issue is the bylaw not being enforced to an extent where people are ignoring the traffic signs in the area. One other thing with the bylaw that was passed or read, I'm not sure if it was the first reading, but it was with regards to, I think it's on Hanson Boulevard, last council meeting, you're talking about changing some of the traffic signs or something like that. My concern wasn't with regards to that, but what it was is that on the spreadsheet that's attached to that bylaw, it states where all the no stopping signs are in town. And right in front of ODSS, it's not correct in the table. Basically, it doesn't document that there are stopping signs in that area. It refers to Sunset Drive connecting up with Feed Street, which it doesn't. So that's probably something that should be corrected. I don't know if it makes a difference when you're trying to enforce the bylaw that the actual bylaw table isn't accurate, but it should be corrected, I would think. And my third request is actually what my question is, and I was wondering if there was an update to the bylaw for the bylaw to enforce no stopping in the school zone around ODSS.
Mr. Smith?
I'll just comment that there's no update at this time.
Okay, thanks very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ramsey. Was there any additional members of the public wishing to ask a question? And if you can do the same, state your name and address for the record, and then the floor is yours.
My name is James Jackson. I live at 50 Carlton Drive. And my thought is, hang on a second. Sorry. My thought is, since something's coming up about with parking, It's just a thought of our fines, if our fines are basically really low, if they should be up to date, brought up to basically up to standards. The other thought is, since we've eliminated parking, basically we've taken away half of the parking that's available in town by parking only on one side. Like in front of my house, there is enough space there for 2 vehicles to park, but we always have somebody park right in the middle, taking up 2 spots, and that happens at the neighbor as well, and down below as well. So there was the other day, just to give you a quick example, is I had a company come over. They couldn't come to our house because they had to park too far away, and it was inaccessible for them. It would have been too hard for them to try and get to our house. Because we had 3 vehicles taking up 6 parking spots. So my thought is that maybe we should have bylaw go around and give out parking tickets for parking like that. If there is, I know I did parking enforcement down in Toronto and in Peel Region, and there was tickets that could be handed out for people who are basically, you're not sharing the parking. I don't know if we have a bylaw like that. If we don't, maybe we should look into creating something like that so that it can be enforced and people can share. Just a thought.
Thank you, Mr. Jackson. I would just make the comment that our parking fees were just upped a couple of weeks ago, a month ago at this point. So we've already looked into that piece. When it comes to residential street parking, I'm not sure that any enforcement can be done when there's no lines outside that indicate where a parking spot would be. I'm getting a nod in the back corner over there from our new licensing supervisor. Yeah, so is that correct? That's what I thought, is that you'd have to have spots actually designated in order to be able to enforce them. So while it's inconvenient if a car takes up the middle between 2 houses, there's not actually a bylaw that can enforce that piece without them being designated parking spots, which they're not right now.
Okay, it was just a thought that maybe we could look into something like that, so that, because like I said, we've taken away so many parking as it is for only one side.
Oh, appreciate the feedback.
Thank you.
Thank you. Was there anybody else in the gallery wishing to ask a question? Mr. Smith. Yes, you do need to state your name and address for the record again, and then go ahead and ask the question.
Matthew Smith, 38 McCarthy Street. I'm not sure if anybody tonight can answer the question, but at your last town hall forum, I had asked the library CEO about a Mill Street update, and I think she said late October, early November, and right now it's late October and there hasn't been any announcements yet about Mill Street opening, so I don't know if anybody has an update to that, if it's still on schedule.
Ms. Fraser is on the line if she's able to. I'm not sure if she's able to provide a full update yet. Okay, if not, we'll turn over to him. Oh, she's coming.
Good evening. Through you, Mayor Post, the things are coming along as council did see last week. We keep pushing the limits. We're looking at a soft opening in mid-November now.
Mid-November soft opening. Okay, and mid-November being approximately what, second and third week roughly? We're talking
the middle.
30th. Okay.
Mr. Smith, go ahead.
I think the chief librarian mid-November is close enough.
Thank you.
All right, mid-November. Thank you.
We will communicate as soon as we have a date. We will make sure the public is aware.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank
I
you.
want to read a book. Thank you.
Was there any last questions from the gallery? Okay, seeing none, we will move on to the consent agenda. The following resolutions have been prepared. So the recommendation is that the consent agenda items for the October 30th, 2023 council meeting listed under 13.1 staff reports, 13.2 correspondence, and 13.3 committee board minutes be received, and that the recommendations listed under 13.1 staff reports and 13.2 correspondence be approved. Was there any member of council who wishes to pull any one of those items out? Deputy Mayor?
I'd just like to lightly talk to 13.1.7 if
Okay, so we will remove it from consent agenda, no problem. 13.17, was there any additional?
If I may, it seems funny to just pass the report on the, sorry, I'm just going to this spot, the final update on parking one side of the street.
That one's not included in it.
Oh, it's not included.
Oh,
perfect. Oh,
that's in 14, so it's only the items in 13.
Thank you very much for clarification. Yeah.
Any additional from there? Okay, so we will move forward with the motion minus the one item, which is 13.1.7. Ms. McDonald, you've got that one recorded. Can I have a motion to that effect, please? Deputy Mayor, seconded by Councillor Prendergast. Any questions or comments? All in favor? And that is carried unanimously. Next, we will speak to 13.1.7. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. I'm just curious on the amended financials. I see that the dollars all work out in the end, but there is the velocity of money argument. And so we adjusted down in year one and we're funding our friends in Mono at a great rate. And then they jump by a large amount in year two. I'm just curious why we didn't stay with what was original, because even though the monies work out in the end, there's a year where we're actually funding Mono versus the real cost. That's the way I'm reading the report. And I'm just curious what the rationale was behind that.
Mr. Kelly?
Sure, through you, Mayor Post, we did myself and Acting Chief Richardson did present, answer inquiries from Mono Council, brought back the request from them, and considered what we could do from a staging of collection. We were under the previous version of the agreement already funding a small portion of theirs in the near term and making up for it in the later term. This continues to do that to a bigger extent. The one piece that's key within that is it does put us at a better starting point at the end of the term of the agreement. So we wouldn't anticipate the need for one of these significant increases in year one of the new agreement. I won't guarantee there won't be one, but we wouldn't be anticipating one. My understanding from previous iterations was that that has happened multiple times, that the first year of the agreement had a very significant increase. So this should help to mitigate against that. And the council at the town of Mono was very receptive and appreciative of our willingness to adjust that cost, obviously, if this council is okay with it as well.
Any follow-up, Deputy Mayor?
Maybe it's just an emotional one. Like, it feels like we're always dealing with that one municipality. And candidly, I love the mayor, I love the deputy mayor, great people, but it's annoying to me. So in year one, we're funding them is what's happening. And I see it's not lost on me at the end that we end up in a better result. But then I also start thinking about 2027 and what that negotiation would be. And they'd say, oh, well, you should have been at 1095, but we gave you 1137. So we're not going to give you as much of an increase. Like, I just feel like they should pay for, and they normally do, but I want them to pay for what they use of ours. And it doesn't feel like it's always the case. So the agreement's been, I guess, ratified. I just wanted to make the point that I don't love it. And, you know, I know Mona would watch this. I'm sure I'll have a conversation with Mayor Creamon about it, but it doesn't impress me what they're doing and the way that I see this. They should pay what the costs are.
Okay, so with that, I will ask for a motion on the floor. The motion is that report CPS 2023-80 amendment to fire service agreement fee schedule for the town of Mono be received, and that the updated fee structure outlined within report CPS 2023-80 be approved. Can I have a motion, please? Councillor Andrews and Councillor Prendergast, any additional questions or comments on this item? Seeing none, I'll call the vote. All in favor? And that's carried unanimously. We will move on to staff reports. We will start with 14.1, scope change to capital project. The recommendation is that report CMS-2023-37, scope change to capital project be received, and that council grant authority to the Orangeville Public Library Board to reallocate funds in capital project 20320.1300.90860 computer hardware in the amount of $57,241. Can I have a motion, please? Councillor Stevens, seconded by Deputy Mayor. Questions or comments? Seeing none, all in favor? And that is carried unanimously. Item 14.2 is the final update on townwide parking on one side of local streets. The recommendation is that report INS 2023-61, final update on townwide parking on one side of local streets be received, and that council adopt the parking restrictions as outlined in Schedule A, Attachment 1 to this report, and that a bylaw be authorized to update the current traffic bylaw, which is 78-2005, to incorporate the parking restrictions as outlined in Schedule A, Attachment 1 to this report, and that council adopt the updated Schedule J to traffic bylaw 78-2005 to include no trucks on Hanson Boulevard between County Road 16 and 100 meters west of First Street, and that council adopt the updated Schedule G to include new traffic signals at Dawson Road and Centennial Road. Can I have a motion, please? Councillor McIntosh, Councillor Stevens, questions or comments? Councillor Andrews.
Thank you very much, Your Worship, and this would go to staff as for the report. And again, thank you for the detailed report. A lot of work has gone into it. A couple of things. First of all, the word final. As we know, there are those situations as best laid practices are put into place. Sometimes there may be just something that comes about where you realize that even though the decision has been made, will there still be an opportunity at some point where if something is brought to the attention of staff through council, can it be looked at? So that's my first question.
Mr. Jalise, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you to the councillors. Certainly, final is probably a poor choice of words. I could have clarified that, so I appreciate you bringing that up and giving me the opportunity to speak to it. Absolutely. I see this as an iterative process. The needs of the community change weekly, as it were, and certainly if there's a better way to do things that council wishes or we bring back to you, we would suggest that this would be adjusted accordingly. We are working with the clerk's office to update the actual administration of the bylaw, and we'll be doing that, I believe, in early 2024. I hope I'm not speaking out of turn as I look over at the clerk, but certainly that's part of the process as well. Thank you, Councillor Andrews.
My second question through you, Worship. And again, I want to thank Mr. Sinclair for coming as part of the delegation earlier to bring to our attention some anomalies, some things that are happening within our community, and one of which is I chair the Homelessness Task Force, which also embraces affordable housing as part of the discussion. And as we know, the province has added some additional pressure within our community to add additional units, as would be, I guess, under the auspices of being legal. But we are growing with a number of additional properties where they have tenants. And what I've noticed is there has been an increase in the number of vehicles that may be the ebbs and flows of the rental. We're finding that may be something for us to also consider is to how do we monitor that, because there are increased number of vehicles that are now in many residents. We have in some households, as I've spoken to a number, where they have the boomerang kids who have now come back into their household. Be that to their liking or not, but they also bring a form of transportation or two or three. And so subsequently we have this spillover that is occurring on some of our town streets. So this is not to ask for an answer, but for, I guess, staff to be aware that this is a growing concern. And one of the mandates of that committee that I chair is, in fact, to take a look at alternative additional forms of housing that are deemed to be affordable. And as part of this, the community is going to grow in different ways, and part of it is going to be that further congestion that exists on our town streets. So I'm hoping that as you dive into the creation of further report drafting and in dialogue with, be that the consultant that had provided some traffic mitigation options, this is something that we have to be aware of. I know that other members during a question period have also brought this up. So it may be something that we'll see at a future report that hopefully helps to guide us moving forward. And the last is, in fact, I did reference Mr. Sinclair's suggestion, and I'm not sure if this is the appropriate time, Your Worship, to also maybe consider this. What complexity would that have regarding no fines during, be that Christmas or New Year's? And who would be able to answer that question?
You can start maybe with Mr. Jalise and then maybe look at bylaw as well.
Okay, thank you.
You're up first on the hot seat, Tony.
Thank you, Your Worship, and through you to Councillor Andrews. Certainly, as I recall in past years, we have brought forth a motion for council's consideration to, I'm looking for the right word, say relax the prohibitions on streets, and council has agreed to that. We can certainly look at that with bylaw and bring something back, but insofar as the enforcement and so on, I would have to defer to the clerk and to the new supervisor, if you don't mind, Madam Mayor.
Like that one from
I think I can answer that. If council supports that, then we can enact that. It doesn't require any further addition besides the change to the parking bylaw. So we could build that in, and when that bylaw is enacted by council, then that allows for the enforcement. I would like to be able to consult with my colleagues on it before it comes back. Winter control is always a factor, and allowing driving or parking on street during winter control season can be problematic, but we certainly take that under advisement, and you could build it into the bylaw that annually on Christmas Eve and New Year's Eve or any other nights, Super Bowl Monday night, there's a lot of different options.
Wonderful. So that could come back at another time then. Okay. Councillor Sherwood was next on the list.
Yes, Your Worship, through you to staff, I have 2 questions. So the first one is you're recommending that no trucks on Hanson Boulevard between 16 and 1st. Does this allow for delivery trucks to get into what we all still refer to as the Orangeville Mall, like to get into Metro and all of that? If they have to come on to they have to come on to Hanson off 1st Street to deliver?
And that's why there's the 100 meters west of 1st Street, I would say, is why that's parameters in there.
Okay, so my next question then is this will also, if it takes effect immediately, result in problematic with regards to the current trucks that are using Hanson to do the Avalon construction. If they're taking part of Hanson to go down Preston. So how were they to get in and out if they're not allowed on Hanson?
Mr. Delise.
For you, Your Worship, to Councillor Sherwood, the General Manager of Infrastructure Services or his designate has the ability to waive that for construction as part of that. But you're absolutely right. They would come in on County Road 16, which has no prohibitions. And through the site plan and through discussion with proponents, for example, we could waive that specifically for that construction site. And we have done that in the past.
Okay, additional questions from members of council. Deputy Mayor?
Just a commentary, if I could, Mayor Post. Thinking about the Christmas, New Year's piece again, I just want to offer my thoughts on this, and I think it's a dangerous thing. So candidly, last year was a disaster at Christmas time, and I've had other years where it's not shorts, but it's, a golf shirt and you're having a nice time and people are really upset that we've got this. I just think that one rule is best, and even though sometimes we have a green Christmas, it's not really the norm. It might be as climate change continues to take its toll, but I think we're going to cause confusion.
There are other municipalities, Deputy Mayor, and I believe Caledon is one of them, and I'm looking at Ms. Savage for clarification on that, but where when they do have days where they will lift the restrictions on winter parking, it's got the caveat that if there is a snow activity planned, then that is canceled as well. So it would be you could park on Christmas Eve unless there's snow activity, in which case you wouldn't have. So I know that they do it in other municipalities. So I mean, I think there's a way to mitigate it.
It's complicating things, and to me, you're going to create confusion and issues.
Yep, understood. Any additional questions or comments? Okay, we've got a motion on the floor, moved and seconded. I will call the vote. All in favor? And that is any opposed? Councillor Sherwood, you were good. I didn't see your hand. You're good. Okay, wonderful. Carried unanimously. Okay, next we will move on to 14.3, which is the sewer line warranty program agreement. The recommendation is that report INS 2023-62 sewer line warranty program agreement be received, and that council approve the sewer line warranty program agreement attached to report INS 2023-62 between the town of Orangeville and Service Line Warranties of Canada, and that council pass a bylaw authorizing the mayor and clerk to sign the sewer line warranty program marketing agreement attached to report INS 2023-62 between the town of Orangeville and Service Line Warranties of Canada, Inc. Can I have a motion, please? Councillor McIntosh, seconded by Councillor Prendergast. Questions or comments? Deputy Mayor, and then Councillor Andrews.
If I could, Mayor Post, I guess it's to yourself, Tony. The question would be, I think everybody who just read this, their eyes glazed over and they're waiting for the next thing we're going to go through here. This is really boring stuff, but people don't realize how important this is and how much money it could cost them. So I guess my question is how will we get the word out that we have this program, and how will we convince people that it's the right thing to do to sign up, especially if you're in an older section of town?
Mr. DeLeese, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Mayor Post, and through you to the Deputy Mayor. Great question. This was the final step of getting the agreement ratified by council and obviously signed by the mayor and the clerk. Next steps, if I could speak to it that way, is to engage our communications manager, Ms. McGibbons, and then certainly set up a meeting with the company, Sewer Line Warranty of Canada Limited, I believe is their official name. And they are responsible for all the marketing, including getting the word out. And they have a very extensive campaign. And it's in their best interest to sign up as many people as they possibly can, obviously. And certainly we'll be the overwatch on that. And when I say we, I mean the town of Orangeville. And certainly we will work across our platforms, across their platforms. There's flyers and handouts that get placed on each door, like a door knocker. And certainly I'm told from speaking with colleagues in Hamilton that it is quite an extensive campaign, and they do try to reach everybody, all walks of life, all sections of town, and so on. And certainly I believe that there's a reporting feedback on that. Don't quote me on that, but I would certainly bring something back to council at some point through the campaign just to update you on how many people have been solicited and how many people have actually signed up.
Councillor Andrews.
Very quickly, and we're on the same page regarding communication and education. I think it's imperative, and I absolutely agree. This is a great program, opportunity for people to avoid some unexpected expenses, not only in the older parts of our wonderful community, but things can happen depending on how trees have been planted, or if you have some individuals who decide to do some home improvements and don't go through the proper utility locates. As a result, things can happen unexpectedly. So I look forward to further communication and, of course, implementation.
Thank you, Councillor Andrews. Any additional questions? Councillor Sherwood.
Yes, through you, Your Worship. The other thing you might want to take in consideration is when the municipal tax bills go out, they always send out an information flyer, and perhaps something could be either piggybacked off that or included in that information package. You want to hit the property owners, and tax bills go to property owners.
Mr. Smith wanted to add something to that.
Yeah, I'll just comment. I've worked with this company before. They do an extensive marketing campaign. It is a private company. So we do need to be thoughtful on how we're promoting a private company's interests. You know, we do have a partnership with them. I have every confidence that our communication staff and infrastructure services staff will manage it appropriately. I would be surprised if anyone that is a homeowner in Orangeville is not aware of the program by the time they're done. They just.
Excellent. Thank you, Mr. Smith. Any additional questions or comments? Seeing none, I'll call the vote. All in favor? And that's carried unanimously. Item 14.4 is 515 Broadway residential demolition permit application. The recommendation is that report INS 2023-67 regarding 515 Broadway residential demolition permit application RD 2023-1 be received, and that the residential demolition application be approved subject to the following condition: that a construction waste management plan be implemented by the applicant. Can I have a motion, please? Councillor Sherwood and Councillor McIntosh. Questions or comments on this item? Councillor Sherwood.
Yes, Your Worship. More a comment, but I may want to get an explanation from Mr. Ward. I find it extremely disappointed that we are going from providing 179 housing units to 57, and that they changed the scope. So in other words, they approached us with this great plan. We were quite enthusiastic that we were going to be offering some long-term care to citizens so that, you know, we could have our mums and dads in our community and not spread out across the province. So I'm just saying it's very disappointing. And was this maybe perhaps struggles that they had to get improvements through CBC, or what exactly do you think made the game plan change?
Mr. Ward?
Thank you, Your Worship, and through you to Councillor Sherwood. So that is sort of a separate venture. They filed land use applications to permit that new proposal, separate from what was previously approved by council, involving the long-term care facility and the I think it was 18 townhouse units as part of that. So that's a separate venture. We'll be reporting back on that at a later point in time for council's decision on those applications. In the meantime, however, what's before you is a residential demolition. It's to demolish the existing dwelling on the property to make way for some site works that's happening as part of an environmental restoration project. That project is part of the holding symbol that restricts any development from proceeding until such time as the site is environmentally restored and enhanced and development limits confirmed as part of that.
Good, Councillor Sherwood? Okay, perfect. Any additional questions or comments? Seeing none, I will call the vote. All in favor? And that is carried unanimously. I will turn the floor over to Deputy Mayor now to chair.
Okay, thank you very much, Mayor Post. We have a notice of motion made prior to meeting that is on the floor. And Mayor Post, you have put that motion forward. Did you want to speak to that to introduce it to council?
Yes, please, Deputy Mayor. Thank you very much. Before you see the notice of motion that I submitted prior to the meeting. It is to declare gender-based violence and intimate partner violence an epidemic. I will read the recommendation. It is long, so bear with me, please. The recommendation is that whereas the safety of our community and its members is of extreme importance to every Orangeville resident as well as to Orangeville Council, and whereas gender-based violence and intimate partner violence, often referred to as domestic violence, means any use of physical or sexual force, actual or threatened in an intimate relationship, including emotional and or psychological abuse or harassing behavior. And whereas on August 16th, 2023, Justice Minister Arif Virani described the gender-based violence as an epidemic in the federal government's formal response to a coroner's inquest, also stating that his government is committed to ending the gender-based violence epidemic in all of its forms and is working to address any gaps in the criminal code to ensure a robust justice system response. And whereas by declaring gender-based violence and intimate partner violence an epidemic, the town of Orangeville can join the growing number of municipalities and regions in demanding action from all levels of government to address this growing epidemic. And whereas the incidences of gender-based violence and intimate partner violence have increased exponentially throughout the COVID-19 pandemic and have not decreased, while funding to provide the growing demand of services and support for victims and survivors has not kept pace. Be it resolved that the town of Orangeville officially declare intimate partner violence an epidemic as per recommendation number 1 from the Culleton, Cusick, and Warmerdam CKW inquest. And be it further resolved that the town of Orangeville recommends that gender-based violence and intimate partner violence be declared an epidemic in the province of Ontario, and that the town of Orangeville requests that the Federation of Canadian Municipalities, the Association of Municipalities of Ontario, and all municipalities and regions in Ontario declare gender-based violence and intimate partner violence an epidemic, and that the town of Orangeville requests that the provincial and federal governments enact the additional 85 recommendations from the CKW inquest, which provides a roadmap to preventing intimate partner violence from escalating to femicide. And that the town of Orangeville requests that the federal government starts this enactment by adding the word femicide as a term to the Criminal Code of Canada. And 6, that the town of Orangeville requests that the provincial and federal governments provide the necessary support to municipalities, regions, and their emergency and social services to meaningfully address the gender-based violence and intimate partner violence epidemic. And that the acting clerk be directed to send a copy of this motion to the County of Dufferin, the Honourable Premier of Ontario, Doug Ford, the Right Honourable Prime Minister of Canada, Justin Trudeau, members of Parliament, members of Provincial Parliament, the United Nations, and all Ontario municipalities. And I am looking for a seconder for that motion.
Thank you very much, Mayor Post. Councillor Sherwood, second that motion. Very good. Would anyone like to speak to this? No? Councillor Stevens, sorry, I didn't see.
I fully support this motion as you read it out. It's wonderful. Thank you.
Councillor Prendergast.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Taylor. I just wanted to thank you, Mayor Post, for highlighting this important issue within our community. It's very poignant after hearing Mrs. Kennedy speak from Family Transition Place, and just that, you know, violence against women, gender-based violence, it's an epidemic in our community. It's linked with affordability and so many other systemic and social issues. And I'm proud that I'm on a council that understands this and is addressing it.
Very good. Thank you very much, Councillor Prendergast. Councillor Andrews.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Taylor. As I responded back to Ms. Kennedy, this is something that we as a community really have to step up with. And I applaud you as the leader of our council for putting this motion forward. We need to do more. This is not just one of first steps. This is one of a continuum of steps. And I hope that other members of our community who are watching this or will be reading about this, this motion, actually do step up.
Thank you very much, Councillor Andrews. Anyone else from council wish to speak to this? Mayor Post, any last thoughts?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Yeah, no, I just wanted to thank everybody in advance for the support. I think this is a really important issue. Coming up in the middle of November, I will be attending a conference as well that is all about gender-based violence, and I will be speaking as part of a mayor's panel about how municipalities require the support from additional levels of government, that we all need to work together on this issue, and that it requires multiple levels of support and collaboration between all the different levels of government to get there. So I appreciate in advance the support. I look forward to being able to sit on that panel and let them know that we've already done this piece and that we're ready to do the next steps.
Thank you, Mayor Post. And just my commentary, if I could. Certainly the issue has been talked to. I wouldn't have anything else to add, but I'd just like to thank you for being such a thoughtful and articulate leader. And we appreciate you very much. So all in favor of this motion? That motion is carried unanimously, and I turn the meeting back over to Mayor Post.
Thank you for that, Deputy Mayor. We'll move on to item 16, which is notices of motion at meeting. And before I take that, I just want to thank council for supporting that previous motion. Was there any notices of motion at tonight's meeting? Seeing none. Any announcements? Councillor Andrews.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. One of the community groups that we have, Choices Youth Shelter, has a fundraising event that is taking place, starts actually today and runs through until November the 10th. Opportunity to win some prizes through a fundraising raffle. And if you drop by the Choices Youth Shelter website, all the details are there, but great organization. And if you have the opportunity, the means to support them, please do so.
Thank you, Councillor Andrews. Additional, Deputy Mayor.
Just a shameless plug, if I could, and that is very soon, about 5-6 weeks from now, the Optimist Christmas in the Park will open up again, and that is not the announcement. The announcement is that every Saturday moving forward, the Optimist will be in the park. There's certainly many hands make for light work, so if you're interested in volunteering or have young people that would like to get their volunteer hours in, you can reach out to myself and I can put you in contact with the Optimist Club, or you could just simply Google the Orangeville Optimist Club and they would link you in. So just wanted to bring that up. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Councillor Prendergast.
Thank you, Mayor Post, through you. I just wanted to remind everyone that tomorrow is Halloween, and to just, not that you need a reminder, but there are going to be a lot of children out, and just safe driving tomorrow, everybody. And Mayor Post, I didn't know if you're going to speak to the event on Saturday at the Museum of Dufferin to kick off Veterans Week, because I know sometimes, okay, it's at the Museum of Dufferin, and representatives from the Orangeville Legion and the Shelburne Legion will be there, along with a notable local guest speaker and historian, Neil Orford. I believe it kicks off at 10 a.m., but it promises to be a really great way to honor veterans, local veterans, and their stories. And it should be well attended, and I plan to go and hope to see other people from the community there also.
Thank you for highlighting that one, Councillor Prendergast. Was there any additional? Then before we close off announcements, my announcement was going to be similar along the lines. I just wanted to let everybody know all of council is wearing their poppy today because the Legion has officially kicked off their poppy campaign for 2023. The Legion really needs our support. They can really use the extra finances that come from poppies. It's a great way to honor veterans, but it's also a great way to support the Legion. So when you see the veterans, Legion members, volunteers out collecting funds in exchange for poppies, please support if you're able. November 11th, we will be having Remembrance Day ceremonies. It is a Saturday this year in Alexandra Park with a little reception afterwards at the Legion. We invite all of the community to participate in that as well. Councillor Sherwood.
Your worship, you might want to say who the best team is that's going to be out there collecting funds for the poppies.
That's a really excellent point, because council has decided to take over the liquor store on Broadway one day. I'm just trying to get my date here. It is, I think it's November 7th. Yeah, November 7th at the Broadway liquor store. The entire day will be taken care of by Orangeville Council. We are going to be working in shifts, each one of us taking on a shift, and we will be there from open to close at the LCBO. So if you want to pop by and see us and pick up a poppy, that would be on November 7th.
So your worship, since I'm trying to challenge the rest of council and hopefully get the most in, please come and visit between 2:30 and 4.
Excellent. So we hope everybody will support. Was there any additional announcements by any members of council? Okay, seeing none, that will take us right into the bylaws. There is a recommendation that the bylaws listed below be read 3 times and finally passed. A bylaw to authorize entering into an execution of a lease agreement with 2109070 Ontario Limited for the use of a laneway and 4 parking spaces at 85 and 87 Broadway. A bylaw to amend bylaw 78-2005 to establish no parking on local streets within the town of Orangeville. A bylaw to authorize entering into an execution of a marketing agreement with Service Line Warranties of Canada, Inc. for the purpose of offering the residents an option for maintaining water and sewer lines in the town of Orangeville. And a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the Council of the Corporation of the Town of Orangeville at its closed and regular council meeting held today, October 30th, 2023. Can I have a motion, please? Councillor Sherwood and Councillor Stevens. Questions or comments? All in favor? And that is carried unanimously. And a motion to adjourn. Councillor McIntosh and Councillor Andrews. All in favor? And that's carried unanimously. Have a wonderful evening, everyone.